Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm so pleased you're here, and I hope you've had the most wonderful week. So I wanted you to imagine something today, and I really thought it was helpful to share this with you. So imagine getting that promotion at work and finally doing your dream job, all while maintaining balance. Imagine waking up full of energy, confident in your own skin, feeling less anxious and stressed during the day. Imagine confidently networking with people you've just met and traveling for business and not feeling exhausted as soon as you get there. Imagine going through your day with ease, calm, and focus, knowing you can handle anything that comes your way, and end the day fully present with your family. Imagine not wishing your life away, not waiting for the next vacation or an exciting weekend, and instead genuinely enjoying every moment. Well, you might be thinking, well, how? You might be also be thinking, well, that sounds like a bit of a pipe dream. It's not something I can do. However, all of this is absolutely possible and is waiting for you on the other side of making one decision. Getting rid of this one thing leads to everything. The doors open, you start to give yourself permission to go after those opportunities, and life feels less frantic. What is it? You might be asking. And I know you know the answer, but I thought I'd say it. Taking a break from alcohol for at least 100 days will lead to everything that I've just mentioned, and you will experience all of this. So if you don't believe me, give it a try. And I've got loads of tools and resources that can help you. I've got lots of freebies. I've got coaching, my online course, the retreat, if you want to come and do the retreat. And I have been talking to a few people recently and speaking to some ambitious corporate women, especially who would like to do coaching, but the 8 or 12 week commitment wasn't quite right for them at the moment. And so I've started doing these 2 one-to-one coaching session packages called Activates, which I wanted to share with you. So it's a great way to start on your coaching journey and get results fast as we deep dive into 75-minute sessions. So if you are a female leader, or an ambitious corporate woman looking to break free from the habit of drinking, then the Ditch Drinking package is for you. And that involves reviewing your relationship with alcohol. They're 2 intensive focus sessions where we review your current relationship with alcohol. We determine what's stopping you from becoming alcohol free, or what you might be struggling with if you're early on your alcohol free journey. We identify the next steps you can take to begin or continue on your journey. And you'll also gain practical tools to help you begin your alcohol-free journey if that's what you decide to do after the sessions. And I'm also offering for people who might already have stopped drinking, but are really looking to thrive, I'm offering the Thrive package if you really want to thrive in life. And in the intensive focus session for the Thrive package, where we have two intensive focus sessions, again, two 75-minute sessions. The first one is an intensive focus session where we can cover anything that you might be thinking about. So, some of the examples of things that I've coached people on include a career move, navigating relationships, a goal that you're looking to achieve, finding work-life balance, a habit that you'd like to form or you'd like to break, something you might be procrastinating about, and then maybe thinking about how to improve your well-being. And that's the first session. Then the second session is a one-to-one human design session. And this is really to help you better understand yourself and your strengths. You'll be able to identify patterns of behavior, beliefs, and thought processes that might be limiting you. You'll truly embrace and celebrate who you are, and you'll gain clarity on the next steps as well. So, this is a two-session package for you if you are looking to thrive in life. And so, I'm really excited to be offering these because it's the lowest investment for one-on-one coaching that I offer. And I'm doing it because I want it to be as accessible to as many people as possible. So, I know these sessions are going to help you elevate your life. They'll provide clarity and they'll give you the next steps that you want to take. If that's something you want to do, I do all my coaching sessions online. So wherever you are in the world, we can do it and we'll find mutual time that suits you. And so if that's something you're interested in, then do get in touch. You can send me an email, admin@thrivealcoholfree.com, and just comment the word activate, and we will share the details on how you can book this two package session. They're a limited number because I can only do so many, but I am excited to work with you if you are looking to ditch drinking or you're looking to thrive in life and you want a kickstart on that journey and you want to do two one-to-one 75-minute coaching sessions with me. I'm excited to meet you and to work with you. Okay, so today's guest, who is really exciting, and I think she is amazing. I was actually a guest on her podcast. Today's guest is Stephanie Affinito. So, Stephanie is a passionate advocate for the transformative power of books and writing. Through her blog, her podcast, and coaching endeavours, Stephanie delves into the profound impact of literature on our lives, weaving together stories of personal growth, healing, and empowerment. Her journey from a childhood immersed in books to navigating through life's challenges with the solace of literature showcases the profound influence of reading and writing on our well-being. She has an inspiring vision and commitment to fostering restorative reading practices for a brighter, more connected future. She blogs about the power of leading literate lives and podcasts weekly on books and reading, writing and notebooks, and everything in between in Get Literate. She also chats with new children's literature authors every week on her Kidlit Love podcast. I met Stephanie earlier this year and she invited me onto her Get Literate podcast. And she is an incredible person. I sent her a few mocktail recipes, which were included in my free mocktail recipe guide, my top 10 favorite mocktail recipes, which includes an alcohol-free mulled wine and an alcohol-free Baileys if you're interested for the festive period that's coming up. But I basically gave her three mocktails and she paired them with books that I hadn't really heard of, and it was amazing. So this time she's come onto my podcast and we talk all things Quitlet. And again, it's a really exciting episode and it just gave me a different perspective. And so we seem to be talking to a lot of authors and talking about Quitlet recently quite a lot, but I just thought this episode was a bit different and I know you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, here is the episode with Stephanie. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am wonderful and happy to be here to have another conversation with you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I so loved our conversation when I was on your podcast. You're just so clever when it comes to picking books. And the feedback I got about the mocktails and the book pairing was just so clever. So thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. And we've got another exciting, I think, anyway, episode that's coming up today for everyone. And so maybe before we get into it, because I am really thrilled about this, why don't you just introduce yourself and we can go from there?
Sure, sure. So I'm Stephanie Affinito. I am from upstate New York, and I am a lifelong reader and writer. I'm quite obsessed about both of those things. I surround myself with books and notebooks. And while I am formally, or I guess technically, I should say, a teacher, an educator, I'm a university professor working with people who want to become teachers and spread the love of books and notebooks everywhere, like I do. My real passion is connecting people to their next right book. I love matchmaking readers to books, and I call myself a bookologist, which basically is just a fun word to say it's someone who loves reading and writing so much that she creates reading and writing experiences for other people to really lean into the power of books and notebooks and reading and writing to make life better. Whatever better means to someone, I truly believe that books and notebooks can help us get there. And that's why I'm so excited to share some books with you today.
Yay! And you have a gift, Stephanie. So I'm really pleased people are going to get to experience that today. And on top of that, you're alcohol free. So amazing. Hence you being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. Well, that's not the only reason, but of course, it always is a good thing.
Right.
So maybe tell us a bit about that journey and the reason you decided to become alcohol free.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple of reasons actually, but I never was a heavy drinker. I was never someone who felt like, oh, I need to stop. It was more of a social thing, but I realized that almost every social thing I did had alcohol. Whether it was going out with another couple, if it was hanging out with another mom, I just felt like it was something that was always there. And while it was fine and it was okay, I didn't really feel very good when I drank. Even a glass of wine could kind of put me over the edge, so to speak. I would always wake up the next day, I would feel awful, I would feel sick. And I just started to realize that I was doing things, whether that was eating things or drinking things or going along with things that didn't really make me feel good because the people around me were. And that was a big one for me that I realized, okay, I really don't want to do this thing. I'm not feeling that great when I do it, but it seemed to be embedded just into a lot of the routines and social situations that I was a part of, but I didn't want it. I didn't want it anymore. And so I just started on a journey to get healthier and feel better. I had a couple of health challenges where I knew I was going to have to cut out a whole lot of things, actually. Alcohol, dairy, gluten. We could just keep a laundry list of the things that I kind of cut out. And when I did, I just felt so much better. I felt better the next day with the foggy head or the headache if I had had a glass of wine. I felt better, especially knowing that I was making a choice for me that may not have been the popular one, and it was not. It was not, but I was feeling really good. And eventually I noticed a difference and just the way I showed up for myself in my health and in my body, but also just mentally, knowing
Mhm.
that I just feel better this way and I'm strong enough, I guess, to make that decision in the face of everybody else enjoying a drink around me and looking at me like I'm the odd one out because I say no, which is why I was
Mm.
so glad when your mocktails came into my life because now I'm having just as much fun with the things that I am bringing. And I just feel like it was a good move for me in this season of life, in this phase of life, to just feel better overall.
Yeah. It is amazing how we're just all conditioned, aren't we, to say, well, if we're going to socialize, then we need to have a drink. If we're going to be with certain people, then of course we're going to drink. And it becomes that thing that unless you take that pause and really reflect on it and think, I'm going to make a change, you just do that forever. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? We can all
Right.
say there's nothing wrong with it. And I was speaking to someone the other day, and the point isn't to say life was terrible or life wasn't good before, but actually it's a whole lot better. And from a health perspective, from a feeling better just in yourself, that makes all the difference. It doesn't mean that there was anything wrong, that you hit rock bottom, that you needed to go to rehab, all these things that are just automatically there if you don't drink. Everyone jumps to conclusions that they don't need to jump to.
They do. I'm so glad you said that because when I did make the decision to just cut it out, and I'd be in a situation where I would say no, even though everyone else is saying yes. And like you said, that is just fine. It's just a
Mhm.
choice that I made. There are some assumptions like, oh, did you have a problem we didn't know about? Or oh, is there something wrong? And I thought, no, I just don't want to have a drink. And it was so eye-opening to me that I was the odd one out saying no instead of the other way around. It was interesting to see the reactions of those around me. Even to this day, I went to my brother's wedding not too long ago, and I did not have the toast. I had a toast. It was
Yeah,
just not an alcoholic one, and people were like, "Not even for the wedding? You're not even for the wedding?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm good. I'm good. I
yeah,
want to enjoy this wedding." I
yeah.
want to enjoy it and feel good all night long.
Yeah, it's so true. Alcohol is the only drug that you have to justify not taking. And that's the
Yes,
reality of it, right? Because everyone sees it as a social norm, as a way to celebrate, way to commiserate. If it's a sunny day, if it's a winter's day, whatever the excuse, let's have a drink. But then a lot of people don't really understand how just taking it out of your life can actually make such a difference. So,
yeah,
yeah, I hope the people you spoke to, it might have just opened their eyes a little bit. It's a bit of an education piece. They probably would have seen you at the end of the night looking really good, and they may not have been so much.
right. For the next day, that's maybe when it
Exactly.
would have kicked
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
next day. Yeah.
Yeah, fun, fun. Okay, so thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate that. I'm going to hand it over to you because we talked about what to do for this podcast, and you've been looking into some quit lit that people might not know because you are the bookologist. And so I'm fascinated to hear about the three books. And maybe as this is completely, I don't know what they are, you're surprising me with them. So as we go through them, we'll see where the conversation leads us. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Okay. Let's do it. And for the record, I do have to thank you for introducing me to this term, quit lit, when you were on my
Yeah,
podcast, Get Literate.
yeah,
Uh, I know that books can be used in all sorts of ways, and we have
yeah,
different genres and different topics, but I had never heard that term before. And so I had a lot of fun
yeah.
diving deep into that term, into all of the information behind it. And when I thought about the books that I wanted to bring to you and your listeners today, I didn't want the books to be your typical run of the mill books. I didn't want these books to be something that if your audience went to Google and said best quit lit books, I didn't want them to come up. I wanted them to be different and unexpected, and also to get you to think about this quit lit or leaving alcohol behind in a different way, right? So a lot of the quit lit that's out there that I found, there's really two types. One
Mhm,
is nonfiction, right? It's books about how to quit. There's
mhm,
challenges to quit. There are memoirs about
mhm,
people who have done the thing and helped. And then there's fiction, where there are books about characters who have gone through the process of perhaps quitting alcohol or quitting some other thing from their life. And it's a fictional story around
mhm,
how it happened. And so I wanted to bring you three different genres across a broader idea of what quit lit could be. It's not just how to do it, someone who did it, and a fake someone who did it. I wanted it to really embrace the whole idea behind why we would do it and how you do it and what does it mean and what are the bigger issues that usually come up when you leave something like that behind. So it is my hope that no one knows these books from the quit lit genre so that we can talk about them today.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is fabulous. Well done, you. Yeah.
Okay. So, book number one, I wanted to bring a nonfiction text, but again, I didn't want it to be a typical, here's how you quit, 30 days to being alcohol free. And so, the book that I decided to bring you first is called You Happier. You Happier
Mhm.
by Daniel Amen. It's actually Dr. Daniel Amen. And this is a book about the brain. It is not a book
Mm.
specifically about quitting alcohol or quitting a habit. It's about understanding you and the way that your particular brain works. And in the book, he talks about different kinds of brain types. And you take this short little quiz, nothing too overwhelming, and you get what he says is your brain type. Those types vary. Obviously, mine, I may have an anxious, sensitive, type A kind of brain, but there are other more creative and relaxed kinds of brains. But the idea is if you lean into yourself, if you know that you want to do this thing and you know that doing this thing is going to be challenging, then the best way to do it is in a way that works for you, not following someone else's routines or rituals or recommendations, but really asking yourself, who am I and what am I like? And what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? And how does my brain work best so that I can support it in this thing that I want to do? And so in the book, you get your brain type, and then the rest of the book goes type by type by type. And it will say, here are your strengths. Here's how you can get stuff done. Here are your weaknesses. Here's where you may stumble. Here's how you can overcome it. Here are the experiences that would best support you. Here are the stumbling blocks that you want to plan for. So it's a book that isn't specific just to quitting alcohol, but it's a book that helps you get to know yourself better to set yourself up to do the thing. And since I've read it, it was a game changer for me. I didn't have this book or know about this book. It likely wasn't even published when I first left alcohol behind. But it has helped me in so many other aspects of my life to not berate myself for how my brain works, which may be
Mm.
overthinking and overcautious and really stressed. And it shows you how to look at those things, no matter what they are, as positives to then help you do the thing. So I think this is a great book to just remind everybody that a journey like this is completely individual to who we are, including our brain and how it works. And it's not too technical, it's not too dry because it's a book about the brain. It is a very enjoyable read, I would
Mm.
say. And if you don't want to know about other people's brains, you can just skip those chapters and just go right to your own.
Oh, I love that. And the brain is so important. I talk a lot about the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind and the impact of that. And we talk about neuroplasticity and the fact that even though we have been conditioned in this way and our brain has programs that basically go back to when we were up to the age of 7, and it's all about reprogramming those thoughts, it's so important. So I think by actually knowing your brain type, that's amazing. And that will make it a lot easier for people to hopefully work with the brain to do even better. So yeah, that's a really great book. I'm going to have to get it. I haven't heard of it. So you've done the first
Oh,
one.
good,
I haven't heard of it.
good. Okay.
So
I'm
you're
starting off on the right foot.
absolutely, absolutely. And you said it was obviously helpful for you to understand your own brain and then think about habits and how you were changing things and how you go after them. Was there anything that you would say was a real aha when you read it? One sort of key point that stands out for you?
The thing that really stood out to me is how well Dr. Amen nailed me. Like the quiz nailed my exact personality. And so I think my
Mm.
aha moment wasn't anything new or glaring or something that jumped out at me. It was just this idea that this is your brain and it's okay. And it actually means that if you pick the right strategies, you can do anything with it. So I think that
Mm.
was the thing I took away from it was I am very hard on myself. And
Mm.
so the pieces of myself that I don't like that may be related to that brain type, like I said, the anxiousness and the overthinking, in the book,
Mm.
they are all posed as positives to get you where you
Mm.
want to go if you just recognize them as
Mm.
as that. And that really was the takeaway for me of, okay, maybe it's time to give ourselves a little grace, a little shift in the way we think about anything that we want to do, but just especially just giving ourselves that space to learn about how we work and then working with ourselves instead of just banging our heads trying to do.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so similar. So I'm curious about the brain, but I do a lot of work in human design. And so that's a similar concept because it talks about how we're obviously all unique. It's a tool for differentiation, but also a tool for deconditioning. And it highlights, when I go through the sessions with people, we not only highlight how to use your energy, how best to make decisions for you, but we also talk about your gifts, your strengths. And when you're working with your strengths, because this is what happens, but actually you have the shadow of your strengths where you're actually your not self. So your strengths are working against you and you're not using them in the right way. So that sounds really quite similar to human design. So I'm fascinated by the brain type. I'm going to do the quiz, but similar to human design, just knowing that you can relax with that as well. And you don't have to now justify yourself because you're slightly different. For example, I'm a manifesting generator, and that basically means that I'm multi-passionate. I like doing lots of things at the same time. I have lots of projects on at the same time. And lots of people would always say to me, how are you doing X, Y, Z all at the same time? And it made me seem a bit weird. And everyone sticks to one thing and they have quite a linear way of being. And I'm just not like that. But once I heard my human design, I was like, oh my goodness. So this is me. This is what I'm allowed to be. And you can actually relax into it and not feel like you're the odd one out or anything else. You know, that's actually who you are, which is fabulous.
I would love to chat with, we have to set up a whole nother time to chat about that because knowing my brain type really set me on the domino effect of, oh, what else can I know? What else about my personality? And
Yeah.
I'm a generator. And so
Oh,
it's
wonderful.
really
Yeah.
interesting to make connections between brain types. And if there is a connection to the human design, that would be fascinating to
Yeah.
uncover.
Yeah. Well, let's set up another conversation on that. Fantastic. Okay, so then the next book.
The next book I have is poetry. And when I did a quick search and a deep dive into the quit lit genre, I really didn't see any. I didn't see a lot of poetry at all. And I think poetry offers us these little bite-sized opportunities to reflect, to get inspired, to fill whatever we need in the moment, even if we only have a minute or two. So the book that I have for you, oh, it's a beautiful book on the inside. The cover is this line art that is gorgeous on the outside. It is called Self-Love Poetry for Thinkers and Feelers.
Oh.
And I want to explain the premise behind it because the format of this book is unlike any other poetry book I have read. And it connects to the first book that I just shared with you about the brain. So, Self Love Poetry for Thinkers and Feelers. It's written by Melody Godfred. And this book, as you might tell from the title, is a poetry book centered completely on self love. And I would say, and I imagine you would agree, that taking on a challenge like giving up alcohol or making a big change, you need some self-love in that process. You need some grace, you need some inspiration, you need all of the things. And this book offers these beautiful bite-sized poems that just either touch your heart or give you a sucker punch to the gut. Meaning the words are just so, I want to say brief because these poems are brief, but they are so packed with meaning for someone who is on a journey like this. But here's the cool part. Depending on the kind of brain you have, and I don't know, Dupe, would you say you are a left side of the brain thinker or a right side of the brain thinker? Left being more analytical and right being more creative.
It's funny, I used to think I was left side, but I think I am more right side now that I am living my truth and being who I think I've always meant to be. So I would say right side, yeah.
Right. I am a left side of the brain person by
Mm.
nature who is trying to be more right side of the brain. So I can understand that. So the
Yeah.
way this book is set up is that if you open the book up flat, on the left side of the page, there is a self-love poem that appeals to the left side of the brain. It is more straightforward, more analytical, more literal, so to speak, where the poem on the right side of the page is more creative. Maybe there's liberty with the form, there is more beautiful lyrical language or a lot of interpretation, but the poems together really have this beautiful similar meaning. It just depends on your brain and what you like and what would resonate with you. And so you've got the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain to give you that self-love you might need in the moment, the self-care you might need, the inspiration you might need. This is a book to help you love who you are and what you want to do and be, no matter what that is. And it's gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, that's why it's called For Thinkers and Feelers.
That's
That's so clever.
yes.
Just the thought that's gone into that is amazing. And self-love and self-care is something that I coach the women who work with me on as part of the Thrive AF method. So it's a huge component to what I do and the work I do. So I'm going to start recommending this to everybody. That's
Yeah. You know,
fantastic.
it's a book that could be read cover to cover if you just
Mm,
wanted to sit down and sink into it and
mm,
have your tea or your coffee and just spend some time with all of the beautiful pages. That's
mm,
one way. Another great way that I use it is every morning I start with a new set of poems and I try to let that
mm,
little message of self-love just sink in for the day ahead. I'm also a
mm,
huge notebooker and journaler, so I will often read the poems and then head to my own notebook and think through it and reflect on it. But I
mm,
love using it as a spark for the start of the
mm,
day to set you up on whatever journey you have that day to set you up on a great note. It's a wonderful book. It's a book where I think towards the end of the book, I gave up putting my sticky notes in the book of my favorites because there were just too many sticky notes to ever remember which one I wanted to go back to.
Do you have one highlighted? Is there one maybe you could read?
You
That's
know,
one of your favorites.
there would have been if I actually brought it to this area I was in. I didn't even think of bringing the one with me. It is upstairs in my morning page bag, which is where
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. It will also excite people to go and get it. So don't worry about it. I will be getting a copy, and
yeah,
then depending on, I think I'm sure I'm going to love it. I'm thinking of how I can include it as part of my coaching. So yes, I might be giving away as gifts and things for my coachees.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, cool, brilliant. Okay, well, again, not one that I've heard of, but so apt for this journey. And I'm loving this. So, third one.
2 for 2. Let's see if I can go 3 for 3. This third one is a fictional story, but it is a fictional story that is not on any of the Quitlet lists that I found myself. And I looked at a lot of them to make sure I was bringing something that was brand new. And this book is one of my favorites. It is a favorite of many, and I think it's really appropriate for our topic we're talking about today. And it's called The Authenticity Project by Claire.
Oh, so I know Claire.
Oh, I was so close to a 3 out of 10.
So close. And Claire's actually been on the podcast and she's amazing. Yeah, I know Claire. So yes, but I'm going to let you describe it as you do. And I understand the reason why it might not have come up on the Authenticity Project, but her original book
Yes.
is obviously what started her writing. She's now on her fourth book, which is she's just an amazing person and she's an amazing writer. So yeah, I'll let you carry on, but I'm glad I knew one of the books.
I am too, only because I love this author, and you're right. I didn't choose the book that may have been the more obvious choice
Yes.
after the list, and now I have to go back and find that episode because she is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley is this wonderful book about six strangers. And the book starts off by readers hearing Julian's story. And Julian is a man in his 80s who, at the moment, is lonely and is isolated and is unhappy with some of the directions that his life has taken him. And he's tired. He's tired of doing it alone. And so he does something quite bold. He buys a notebook, and in the first couple of pages of that notebook, he writes his story. Not the story that everybody thinks of him, that everybody thinks is true, but the real story of the loneliness, of the sadness, of all of the things. And he writes it in that notebook, and then he leaves it in a public coffee shop for someone to find. And he is equally parts horrified that he has done that and excited to think that someone might know the real him if they read it. And someone, of course, does find it. Someone in the coffee shop picks it up, reads Julian's story, along with the invitation that Julian has placed there to then allow yourself, whoever that reader is, to get honest with who they are and what they want and actually leave their real story there. I get goosebumps just thinking about this book again and again because it's my favorite. And that's exactly what happens to six people. They find the notebooks in very different ways. It ends up in different countries and different locations, but it connects these six people together in ways that they could have never fathomed unless they actually told the truth of themselves on the page. And I think it's a great book to think about stories. Like what is our story? What's the public facing story that everyone thinks they might know, but what's the real story of who we are and what we want and who we want to be? And it also has that piece which I love of how can writing our stories down help us get there? The power of writing, the power of notebooking, of journaling, of whatever term you want to call it. Now, one of the characters was an addict who is getting sober on this journey. So there is that little piece in there. But I think the overall message is just thinking about the story you want to tell and the story that's on the inside of who you want to become. And you just get so inspired that even though not all of these characters are on a journey to leave alcohol behind, they are on a journey that is difficult and challenging and equally inspiring in their own ways. And so I think this is a book that could inspire someone, whatever they're trying to do, and hopefully get them to just think about their own story and perhaps share that honestly with someone, because that honest story has such a bigger ripple effect than any of these characters could ever know, and could certainly be the same in real life for us. One of my top 10 books ever.
Oh, wow. Well, when this comes out, I'm going to send it to Claire to listen to. She'll be
Hey,
so pleased to hear that.
Claire, keep writing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, how fantastic. Yeah. And it has done so well. It's been translated in so many languages, and it's just a brilliant book, isn't it? It really
It
is. It
is.
really is.
It
So
is. And I
thank you
keep
for
telling
bringing that.
myself, maybe one day I'll be brave enough to not just write my story, which I have done over and over again in my notebook, but what if? What if I just left it somewhere? I just haven't been as brave as Julian yet. But you don't have to be.
Yeah.
That's the point. Just telling a small piece of your story to someone else, like you're doing here on the
Yeah.
podcast. People are telling their stories of how they have done this thing that someone
Mhm.
else might want to do. And that true story can make all the
Mhm.
difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is all about being your authentic you, isn't it? Which a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
or are afraid to be because they worry about what that means or what it could mean. But actually, vulnerability, authenticity are the things that people are now, I think, beginning to appreciate so much more than maybe before, or maybe before they weren't you weren't allowed to so much. Whereas now people are really open to that. I personally think everyone should go out and do that and be vulnerable and open and authentic. And actually, by writing it down and putting it somewhere that maybe someone finds you've done it without publicly doing it. You don't need to write a book like mine to do that. You can do it in a different way.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Stephanie. That has
You're
been
welcome.
just fabulous. And you've obviously got your podcast. So why don't you tell people about your podcast as well?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for that. My podcast is called Get Literate, and it's a podcast where we explore the power of restorative reading and writing to make life better. So I truly believe that one book, one notebook, both of them have the potential to change everything for us. And my podcast explores those ideas, what restorative reading and writing is, how do you find the time to read and write, how do you know what you should read and write, and then so what do you do afterwards, what are those next steps? And so on the podcast I explore those topics. I have guests like you that come on and really deepen our understanding of them and have some fun with
Mm,
with our episode, at least, especially
yeah.
with mocktails. And I create personalized reading and writing experiences for others. So, one of my favorite
Mm,
things to do is what we've done today. I call them book apothecaries. So, a collection of books for someone who needs them. And you tell me a little bit about yourself, and then I curate these collections for you. And I'd love to share Dupe on my website, elitlife.com. I have this project going on that I've been very excited about. It's called 365 Days of Book Postcards. And let's see, I think I'm only in the day 60s. It's a very new project, but what
yeah.
I've done is every single day, I send a personalized book postcard in snail mail. So it's old-fashioned postcard, handwritten. It looks like a library card. And on the front is a book recommendation, I think, that someone would like, along with a little message from me on the back. And so you just have to go to my website. It's a free Google form. You just tell me who you are, where you want me to send your postcard, and a little bit about you so that I can pick something personalized. And I send one a day out in the mail. I've been in multiple countries now. I've got those fancy international stamps down pat so that everybody gets their postcards from New York. And it is one of my favorite things that I'm getting to do is to connect to readers one to one and recommend a book that literally could be that thing that changes everything. So I hope your listeners would love to join me in that and keep my streak going to 365 days.
Oh, I love that. You'll have to share the link with me as to how they can do that. And selfishly, I want one, Stephanie.
I
Can you
would love
send
to
me
send
one,
you.
please?
I would love to.
Thank you. Wonderful. Oh, well, I look forward to that. And it's always nice getting snail mail, isn't it? You just don't get it anymore. It's always emails and social media and all of that. It's never actually handwritten. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful. Well done, you. And how did you come up with that idea?
It was one of those random things. I had been on social media and I was just kind of browsing and I saw someone I didn't know that had been in my feed and I saw what she posted and I was like, oh, she needs to read this book. And I sent a little direct message and she was so excited and thought, oh, that is so nice. I love how you're like a book fairy and you just kind of drop books. into people's inboxes. And I am always a snail mail kind of person. I love
Yeah.
getting mail. And so I just sat with the idea for a little bit and thought, I want to do that, but I want to send it the old-fashioned way that looks like the old-fashioned library cards that I used to love to pull out of the back pocket when I went to the library myself. And I just posted about it. And apparently a lot of other people love snail mail too, especially when it's a book recommendation and it's written in a pretty colorful marker and it's just a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's amazing. And so 365 days, do you think it'll end up being longer?
I hope it goes as long as people want book recommendations. I
Yeah,
would love that. It's so
yeah,
not only is it fun for me, but what I love that's happening is when people are getting the postcards, they're then finding me on social media or email and telling me that they loved it or that they read it. And then they're recommending books back to me. And I've built so many, I would say, bookish friends that I haven't met simply because I put this random book recommendation out into the world. I've even created a Google map of all the places they've gone so that I can see where
Yay.
in all of the countries. It's like a Flat Stanley or a Where's Waldo, but for me.
That's your analytical side of your brain,
That
definitely,
is.
definitely. How exciting. And I'm just curious, how do you come up with them? How do you know what book to send? Because I imagine if it's a really short bit of information,
Yeah.
what inspires you?
Well, I read a lot, Dupe. And so there are a lot of books that kind of roll around in my head that I might recommend. Most people who submit the forms, they really do give me a good amount of detail because they're readers and they want a
Yeah,
really good book recommendation.
yeah,
Some will put their link to their Goodreads profile so I can see if they've read the book or not. But if there's someone that just puts the bare minimum, which has happened a couple of times, I will typically just kind of run through my favorites. So maybe they'll just put that they love mystery or historical fiction. And if that's all I go by, I tend to go to the things I love. And I
yeah.
have that running list in my head and I do it
Mm.
that way so that it's always personalized. It's just the more you tell me, the more you'll be wowed in your mailbox if you just give me those little details.
Oh, you're so clever. I'm amazed by that. I think that is just a gift. And you've obviously read what must be thousands and thousands of books because not many people could do what you do. So thank you, Stephanie, for just being such a wonderful bookologist. Fantastic. It's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Okay, so where can people find you?
So my website is alitlife.com. And that will have all the places to find me from there. But if you're on social media, I'm on just about every platform except TikTok. I just haven't gotten on that bandwagon other than to follow what my kids are doing. I am on just about all of those socials at Affinito Lit. So my last name and then lit, short for literacy. And you can find my podcast, Get Literate, is on just about every podcast platform. And for those of you that love children's literature, or you're an educator or librarian, I do have a children's literature podcast called Kid Lit Love, where I talk with two different authors every week, one picture book author and one middle grade or young adult novelist. So I've pretty much got every reader covered. No matter where you go, we will find a book for you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with the person listening?
I would just say that books are often an underrated form of transformation. And that as you're going on a journey, like leaving alcohol behind, picking up a book, whether it's one that I recommended or one that you have found somewhere else, it could have that little piece of information in there that could be the game changer. And on top of that, by simply reading just 6 minutes a day, is the lowest number of minutes we need to get the health benefits. It lowers our heart rate, lowers our blood pressure, it relaxes our muscles, it decreases our immune response. There are so many physical things that happen in our body that can help our mental wellness, that actually engaging in the act of reading and then reading something that is specifically designed for you. I think people underestimate the power of that, that reading is not just a hobby, but is actually an essential part of self-care and wellness. And that's the
Mm.
message I hope to spread. Like everybody pick out the book. It is not selfish. It is not just to do before you go to bed. It's everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, just 6 minutes a day is fantastic to actually see those health benefits. And I remember hearing once that readers are leaders, and that really stuck with me because it is really important. And my daughter, she didn't enjoy reading when she was younger, she didn't enjoy reading. And now she absolutely loves it. And it does make such a difference. I think children, especially,
Yeah.
need to read, need to enjoy reading because it's something that then carries you through life and is just so helpful. So the fact that you also focus on children's literature, I think starting at that young age and getting your children to really get to the point where they love reading and they pick up books out of choice and they want to read will just set them up forever. And if you're not a reader, because for me specifically, I remember the year I stopped drinking, I probably read more books in that year than I had for the last 10 years because it just wasn't
Yeah.
something that I did. And I don't know why I stopped reading, but just wasn't something that interested me. And the power for me of reading all those books in that year fundamentally changed a lot of my mindset, a lot of the things that the way I was thinking about things, realizing I could achieve so much more than I was allowing myself to. And it does make a huge difference. So, what you're
Yes.
doing is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'll leave listeners with one little nugget that I love to tell people is that books are patient, right? They're waiting for you. And so it
Yeah.
consider this your invitation to see how they might help you on this journey or any other journey. I love how you just shared, right? You read more books in that year and look what happened. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you. And so I always end the show with the questions. So, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you, Stephanie?
You know, it means a lot of things, but I think the one that comes to mind is kind of related to what I shared earlier in my journey to it. It means choosing me. It means choosing
Mm,
wellness and choosing health and feeling better, even if people around me don't understand that choice.
mm. Yeah, and that's so important because it's the one thing that keeps people stuck because they worry about everyone around them. And actually, you're right, it's a choice, and you've chosen you, and we are all allowed to give ourselves permission to make that choice. So I love the way you said that. Thank you so much for sharing and for being an amazing guest and bringing those three amazing books. Did you have a favorite out of the three?
Oh, well, that's why
I,
I have to pick different genres because they are kind of my favorites in each genre. But if you made me only pick one, I really do have to go with The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. It's just such a meaningful one. But self-love poetry is a really close second.
Okay. Okay. So if you're listening, go and get one of those two to start and then
Yes,
go from there. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And we will catch up soon. We may do another episode on the brain and human design
that
and
would be so much fun.
books that relate to those. So I'm
Yes. Oh,
excited for
I'm
it.
ready.
Take
Thank you so
care.
much.
See you. Well, thank you, Stephanie. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. I was just blown away. She's so clever in the way she just finds these books and she knows exactly which book to bring to the table whenever. And so, Stephanie, I really am grateful for you and appreciate all you do in this space because it's fascinating. So, those three books, just as a reminder, were You Happier by Daniel Amen, and that was all about the brain. Then there was the poetry, which again was just something I didn't expect her to bring, the self-love poetry for thinkers and feelers, which I'm definitely going to get a copy of because it sounds absolutely fascinating. And then, of course, the Authenticity Project by Claire Pauly. And if you've read The Sober Diaries by Claire Pauly, then The Authenticity Project is another amazing book. And she's had another two out since then. So I've been lucky enough to have Claire on the podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode, head back and listen to Claire's episode, but also grab The Authenticity Project if you haven't read that. I am very grateful to Stephanie for that. And I also love the postcard idea that she's doing as well. So again, I would connect with Stephanie. I put all the details in the show notes. She's a great person to know. And just to get some ideas of books, yeah, go ahead and connect with Stephanie. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening today. And I do hope you found the episode informative and something different. I like to surprise you every now and again with something different. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And remember that readers are leaders. So go and get a book today and read it. I've read so many books over the past 4 years, way more than I probably had in the previous 10 years prior to not drinking. So I encourage you to read as much as you can. And that doesn't need to be physically reading, there are audio books. But yeah, I really enjoyed that episode and I hope you did too. Okay, well, have the best week and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my signature Thrive Alcohol Free Society group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.